Hi everyone. I wanted to come back on before we actually begin doing our Mixed Media Morsels Book of Colors. Wanted to come back and just give you a few more ideas of where you can find some things to use in this book for this year. I know a lot of you are already gathering your colored bits and your papers and your images and things, and that's so exciting. You've already, some of you I've seen posted in the Mixed Media Morsels Facebook group, your books, you've made your covers, and you're so excited to get started, and that's really exciting to me when everybody is really on board and wants to play. So I want to thank you for those. And so while we still have a few more days before the first video will go up, I wanted to give you some more ideas in case these are things you hadn't necessarily thought of. I know I mentioned the security envelopes in one of the previous videos, how they have a lot of times different colored images in the envelopes, and so don't forget about those. And also, sometimes the envelope itself is a color, so you can get plenty of colored bits from the solid colored envelopes. This is just junk mail, okay? This one has the blue on the outside and the color on the inside. So that was pretty cool right there. Excuse me, but just keep thinking about, you know, these things, these places you can go to look for a few more things to be gathering up and sorting while we have this extra time, and while we're waiting, it'll give you something to do. So that's one idea for some background papers. Another idea is, of course, to use your washi tapes. There's a bunch of them in here that they're not all necessarily single colors. Some of them are, but washi tape is a good way to put down some color if you don't have any readily available paper. So that's one option. I also have this little pack of washi sheets. So these are actually sheets of washi, and they're really nice colors, and most of them are single colors, so that's kind of cool. A lot of them are single colors. So this is a recollection, so this probably came from Michael's. So that's just something else that you might have in your supplies that you hadn't thought of. Sorry guys, I went out of frame, propping my elbows. That's something that you may not have thought of to look for. So check that out if you may have something like that on hand. Another idea for colored papers is Post-it notes. So you may have a stack of those available, and these can be peeled off and cut or torn and put in your book. If you want to, you can put some pattern or design on it using stamps or stencils, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. But that's another option for pretty colored papers. And while we're talking about Post-it notes, you might have something along the lines of this. These are those little sticky note flags. And so these particular ones, most of them are in a solid colors. A couple of these down here have two colors, but you might have something like that laying around that you didn't think about. So that's another idea. Don't forget those beautiful foil candy wrappers, because they are perfect for this. Beautiful color. Yes, some of them have a little bit of gold or black on them. You know, that's not a big deal. As long as the major color is the color that we're working on that month, you're going to be just fine. But some of these are real handy. I've been saving these things for years, and I haven't really used them very much. So I'm glad to have thought of them so that I can put them in my little envelopes where I'm sorting and gathering my little bits. I can put some of these in there and possibly use them in my backgrounds. All right, one other thing too, we talked about product packaging. Okay, these are some tissue boxes that have colors and patterns on them, which are lovely. And I just take these, I've already started this one, but I just take these and separate the layers so that I'm pulling off the majority of that thicker cardboard. So then you're left with the thin paper that you can easily, I can cut something out of that, or I can just take a rectangular or a square portion of that and stick it down as background in my book. So you guys can do that too. You've got product packages laying around probably in the recycle bin, and so you can go get some of those out and possibly use them. This is a bit of color that I just cut off of a book jacket on a used book. So that'll come, that's a good place to find it. These are tea bags. I mentioned tea bag covers that I mentioned it very briefly in one of the last videos. I think it was the first video, the intro one. But I wanted to show you that I had used on my little example book, this block of yellow back here under the stars is one of these. Okay, and that's just the wrapper from the tea bag. So that's a perfect way to put some color down on the background. Does it matter that there's a few words? Not really. I did it. It didn't bother me. So don't forget about these little bits of color that you can cut open, lay down in your book, and have a bit of color going without thinking that I don't want any of you to think that you have to go out and buy scrapbook papers or buy a bunch of things to make this. I really want you to use, if you can, the things that you already have around your house. Some of you may have some colored rub-ons laying around in your, buried really probably, in your art supplies. And I just realized that a lot of these are pretty solid colors. You know, here's a little hat. Each one of these little diamond shapes is a solid color. Some of this stuff can just be used and will make a really nice little impact on your page or pages. I can clearly see using these little orange fish. Okay. So that's something that can be done for your foreground, for the top layer where you're going to be putting little images and things. But some of you may have some like this that's like just a decorative element. This can be something that's put on the foreground as like the top layer, or it can be put on as a bottom layer. For instance, I could take one of these little pink Post-it notes, and I could rub on this darker pink rub-on image onto that and cut that up and put it in as a background. While we're talking about backgrounds, I wanted to show you, you can put some paint down. And I'm just going to use a card to scrape this paint out. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on the card itself. And just kind of scrape it out. Doesn't matter if your whole page is covered or not, because you're going to be cutting it up more than likely, or tearing it up to use in your book. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to put a little bit of a darker magenta color, colored paint there, and I'm going to just use a stencil and just show you how you can put just a little bit of design on it so that it's not a plain flat piece of paper. And you can do this on the little Post-it notes too, if you decided you were going to use some of those. So you can have some plain areas, that's perfectly fine, but if you want to jazz it up a little bit and have an interesting background with a little bit more visual texture, then this is a fun way to do it, and it doesn't take very long. Just gonna see, let's turn this over and get the white area at the bottom. Here we go. So I'm just gonna put a little of this here, and I'm just gonna go right through the stencil. Okay, and you don't have to do everything, turn it, you know, the same way for the whole thing. You can turn it in different ways, and see, just mix it all up. Let's get one going this way. Okay. So you see you've got a cute little pattern going on your background there. While I've got this paint in this blending tool here, I'm going to just go ahead and add a little bit to this Post-it note. See how cute? It's just a fun little pattern going on. And that way use up the rest of that paint in there. Okay, so now we've got two pages or two sheets with color on it. All right, so now if we take this and cut it out, you can see how that would be a really cute addition to, let's say, a pink page. So you can imagine something like that being on a page on your pink page in your book, okay? And it can be cut down smaller. Most of the ones I put in my original book are smaller pieces. They're not this big. So if you like tearing, you can tear it and, you know, put it in just like so. So that's an easy way to make. If you don't have painted papers on hand, you can make some so quickly and easily just by doing that. Okay, another thing you can do, this is a painted paper that I had in my bin, my little box of painted papers. This is just something that I was using up paint in a brush so that I could wash the brush and switch to a different color, so I would use up whatever paint was left in my brush, and I did that on this book paper. So let's just take like the orange section for instance, and we can just stamp in a darker orange. I hope this is going to be darker. Let's see. And make a pattern in there. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, so if I go to use this bit, you know, and I cut or tear this piece out. Okay, it didn't look like so much when it was on that full sheet, but once you get it, you know, cut down to a manageable size, okay, you have a cute little piece of orange painted paper with a stamped image on it. Okay, so that's a perfect way to use your colored inks if you have colored inks. If you don't, you can also use a stamp and spread out some acrylic paint and dip the stamp in the acrylic paint and do the exact same thing. But you just want to make sure that you wash that off of your stamp. If it's acrylic paint, wash it off right away. Don't let it dry on there, or else you end up with an always painted stamp, and it won't stamp a good image for you anymore. So, okay. So that's the way you can use some stencils and use some stamps. You can also use some stamps. Like this is a cute little set that's got some fun little butterfly images. I think is really sweet. I'm going to see if I can take this off and I'll stamp this guy out and color it. You know, I mentioned before using magazine images, but I wanted to make sure that you all know that you don't have to use magazine images. Okay, that's just an idea of something you can use. You don't have to use magazine images if you have them and can find them. If you don't have, by all means, you know, use those, because there's all kinds of fun images of magazines, but it's not the end all be all to use magazine images on these. It's just one option. Okay, so let me see if we can stamp this guy. Might not be the best stamping. Let me get this side here better. The stamp is a little bit sticky. It's getting older, but let's see if we stamp that. Now, if you do this, what I'm doing here, I'm going to color it in with a little bit of watercolor, I guess. If you do that, you need to be sure that you're using a permanent ink, okay? Because if you, any other type of ink like dye inks and pigment inks can run if you get them wet, and you want a permanent outline there so that it doesn't get wet and, so that it doesn't bleed when it gets wet. So, got some little watercolors here. Get the lid off. There we go. Got a water brush. And now this is just plain printer paper. So if I was doing this for real, you know, to put in my book, I would probably use cardstock or watercolor paper. You know, one of those. So just saying, it will curl up and and not work so well However, since we're just collaging things down, it will, even if this curls a little, it'll glue down just fine when you're ready to stick in. Even if it's a little bit warped, it'll glue down just fine. Okay, so I probably should have done the oranges instead of the yellows. I think I'm going to blot that off, and we'll change that to an orange color. Now, it doesn't matter where I just made a mess and went outside, because we're going to be cutting this out. You know, in order to put it in our book, we're going to cut it out. So, let's see. That's a little bit more orange. Okay. And this one over here, we'll do these wings up top. A little bit of that orange in here. Okay, so we just make the whole thing orange. Okay, so now we have an orange butterfly. Okay, and then when that's cut out, that would be adorable to put in your book. So I'm just cutting out my little butterfly just to show you how it's gonna look once it's cut out. I cut off the antenna because those are really difficult to cut out and keep from tearing. So I just usually cut them off, and then if I want them there again, I'll just draw them again when I go back to my book. So I think I have an orange page in here, right? Yeah. So you can see how cute a little orange butterfly would be on an orange page. All right, and it was very simple, just using your stamps that a lot of you already have sitting there in your stash. If you don't have any stamps, then you can draw simple images. And it's just nothing more than a circle and triangles drawn all the way around the outside in different lengths. So what I would do is take a permanent pen and outline that so that I can color it in and then use it in my book. I'm doing this very quickly, so it's kind of sloppy, but I just want to give you guys the idea that these things can be done, and not only can they be done, they're fun to do. And sometimes I think we just don't always think about the different ways that we can accomplish something. Our minds will get wrapped around, you know, just one way. There's only one way that can be done, and that's just not true. So I wanted to show you how simple it is to do it. I'm going to let this should dry, but I'm going to heat it up real quick to help that drying process along. It doesn't take it that long to dry, but I just want to be sure that it's not going to run when I get it wet. So here we have the yellow going on the sun, and like I said, it doesn't matter if you go outside of the lines when you're, you know, painting something like this that you're going to be cutting out. Of course, I would have erased my pencil lines too, because those will still show if you don't erase them. But if they don't bother you, then it's not a problem. You can leave them there, and it's not an issue at all. Okay, so cute little sunshine, right? That can be very simply and easily cut out and put on a yellow page. All right, and you can do this with hearts or flowers or just shapes in general. speaking of shapes, let me move some of this out of the way. Speaking of shapes, you can use your punches and your die cut images, or die cutting dies, and cut some images out of your painted papers. These are cut out of painted papers, which are just perfect for this kind of a little project. These are punched out of cardstock, just plain solid cardstock. These are punched out of scrapbook papers, and so that's very easy. So use the things you have. If you've got punches, use them. If you've got dies and a die cutting machine, use that, because chances are you've got some cute little shapes that will be perfect to add in on your top layer for where we're going to add images. Also, postage stamps would be very cute to add on the top layer. All right, I would cut these out and, cut it out to the shape of the stamp, probably just a little square or a rectangle, depending on what it is, so that it looks kind of like this. And I would put that on my top layer as one of the cute little focal images that's going to go on top of my backgrounds. All right, so look in your postage stamps if you have those. Look on old mail. Look on junk mail. You're liable to find a cute postage stamp that is basically all in one color. All right. Also, I talked about these in my original video. These are the little tags that you find on your tea bags. Don't forget those, because they're in cute little colors that will be perfect for your book. Different colors, and most of them are solid one color on the tag. So I love that, because they're very easy to use in this. Okay, I mentioned fabrics before that you can attach on your pages, and these are those cute little yo-yos that you make with fabric. Now, I bought these already made, so I didn't have to make these, but if you have fabric, you can certainly make something like this very, very easily. It's just a circle of fabric that you take and do a running stitch around the outside edge of, and then pull it and form it into a circle. There's lots of videos on YouTube showing how you can make these. So if that's something that looks like something you'd like to put in your book, go check that out. That might give you something that you might want to do while you're waiting for the video to come out, is just make some little fabric yo-yos. That's a fun little embellishment. Okay, don't forget about your product tags. Okay, these are pretty much solid colors. This one is white. I can stamp any kind of image on there and paint it or color it with markers. I can do the same thing here. Just use the green that's on the background, and I can either paint over these areas, or I can put stickers or other things on top of the areas that I don't want to keep. Like, don't discard the idea just because it's got words or writing on it. Okay, you can always cover those with something, and you'd be layering up your tag, which would be very cute too in this layered book that we're doing. So that's a good thing to do. Don't forget those. Here's another little product. It's like a tag, but it was a card that something was connected to. I don't remember what now, but that was the cutest image on there of this girl, and I thought, you know what, I could peel that off like when I'm peeling these excess layers off of these things. I can peel that off, and I can cut around this image, and I think that would be adorable on a blue page. Okay, you got to just look at everything and save a box of little bits like this that you may want to use sometime. I just went and found this in a box, the product packaging box that I've got. And that's what I found in there, and I love that. Okay, I was going to show you this too, and I forgot, but I was going to stamp this. This is a sheet of cardstock, a piece of a sheet of cardstock. And I'm going to use this stamp. This is a background stamp. All right, this one is the focal image kind of a stamp. But this one is like a background. So I wanted to show you that. how you can make some background images using the stamp and ink, just like we did with the stenciling and paint. All right, so you can just do this, press the little background stamp down on your paper, and you can also do this with actual bubble wrap, but that's what this is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be a bubble wrap background. So I love that. I think that is beautiful, and it would make a lovely piece to go on a background. In fact, I might keep that and use it in my book if green comes around, you know. So I hope this gives you guys some ideas on some things that you can use and that you can create with. There's lots of little stencil patterns. You know, use a small image, a small design for these small bits that we're going to be using, because if you use a big design or a big image, when you cut it up or tear it up into little pieces, you're not going to see much of it. But if you keep the design small, like this is some punchinella, that's perfect for that. This one has some writing, some script. That's a good one to use. Little tiny areas like this, that's great. And here's another one that's kind of like that with a small, it's like a burlap image. So just keep those in mind. Don't forget that you can also use stickers for your, you can do them for your background or for your focal layer on top. So you got, you know, just cute little colorful things that you probably have in your stash already. Can't even see the color on that. Let me put it on this white. There we go. It's a little bit better. But that's just, they're gorgeous, okay? And they'll be beautiful on your pages. Look at the letters, okay? You've got plenty of letter stickers, more than likely. All right, and then there's planner stickers that are lots of fun to use. And there's usually lots of colors in them. This one is a big one from the Happy Planner. And see, it's got all of these, it's just got tons of color and fun images. So, you know, just, I mean, these would be perfect pieces to use on a background. Just think outside the box and just look through all of the things that you have, because chances are you've got more there than you realize. And you can certainly find what you need to create in this book of colors that we're going to do. Also, children's books. Okay, here's some small images on a page of a children's book. Here's some alphabets that were in a kid's book also. And some very cute little images. There's a mouse, there's some cute little bears, a zebra, here's a baby laughing and playing in the grass, and alligators, and here's a little girl. So, you know, check out your thrift stores and stuff and find some kids' books that have some small images in them. There's just no end to the possibilities here, and I don't want anybody feeling like that they don't have enough stuff or that they can't create, you know, this with us this year because they don't have, you know, a particular type of, you know, a particular book or particular magazines or anything. Just play and enjoy it and have fun, and don't stress by all means. If I don't make anything else clear in this video, I really don't want anybody stressing over not having what they need, because the fact is, if you don't have something that you feel like you would create with, then make something, okay? You can make a sun. You can make circles, squares, triangles, rectangles. You can make a simple butterfly, even though I know this one is stamped. That would be so easy to draw. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We've said that over and over. It doesn't have to be perfect. This butterfly is from a stamp set that is a product sold in stores, and this butterfly is not perfect. Okay? This butterfly is just adorable, and it's adorable because it's hand-drawn. So you can do the same thing. You can hand-draw some things, and you can color them in with crayons. If crayons is what you have, color them in with crayons. Or use paints, acrylic paints or watercolors, or use colored pencils. So I just don't want anybody thinking that they can't do this project because they don't have the stuff. Because if you don't have the stuff, then you can make the stuff, and it's fun, and you've got plenty of time still to start making some fun things. So I am looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to creating some things, and I'm looking forward to just sharing this process with you all throughout the year. And like I said earlier, I'm really happy that everyone is so excited about it. You're all as excited as I am, which I was really surprised by. So I'm really tickled that you're happy that we're doing this project this year. And it's something that I've wanted to do for a while, making a little book of colors. And so I'm glad it's finally coming to be. And we're all going to have fun creating it together. So let's keep sorting and gathering and making, and just have fun with it and enjoy the process of the whole thing. I'm looking forward to enjoying it with you. All right, take care, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.